I got a chance to do something when I was a little girl that really stuck with me. I got a chance to wave my hands around in front of other kids, and I was really literally 4 or 5 years old. I mean, I was just so little, and yet it really lit a fire inside of me, and I was like, man, I love this. This is fun. I love waving my hands around. Everybody's looking at me, and they're playing with me. Who knows what it sounded like, you know? But so that was one of those bugs that, you know, bit me from the beginning. So from the beginning, I fell in love with conducting, fell in love with getting other people together to make music. And from then on, I've just been trying to figure out ways to keep conducting, because to me, it's all about getting other musicians together and making music. Ron Scales, one of the founders, he and I were there at the same time. And Ron was telling me that our paths had crossed, but to be honest with you, I don't remember. But when we did run into each other after I'd finished my bachelor's and I was back here in town, we ran into each other, and Ron asked me to come be a part of Community Music Center of Houston. And he asked me if I would like to be their new executive director. And I was like, wow, I've never been executive director. I thought it was a big deal. You know, I didn't realize that it was still more like a dream in Ron Scales' head. But by then, I was hooked into the idea. And I liked from the beginning the whole idea of, again, being a black music center. I had a string quartet at that point. I was able to find a black cellist. That was a big deal, you know, because I knew that with me on viola and with him on cello, I had stood a pretty decent chance of finding a couple of the fiddle players, because as we know, there's usually more fiddle players around. So then we, you know, got together, had a string quartet, and he was saying, would you like for the, and we were playing gigs, weddings mostly. So he's like, would you like to bring the quartet and be under the umbrella? And we said, okay, sure, because we were just gig musicians. We weren't incorporated or anything like that. So we came under the umbrella of Community Music Center of Houston. After that, then I looked at expanding the string quartet into the orchestra, to the Scott Joplin Chamber Orchestra. So as usual, what I've done my whole life, which is just calling musicians. I knew somebody that knew somebody. Or I had played a show at a church. I was like, oh man, could I get your number? I want to call you about something. I was one of those people that just, if I saw people, we were playing Christmas show, and I was like, hey, can I get your number? I want to call you about the so-and-so. So it was just basic people-to-people networking. I'm thinking it was about 83 when we just started playing together. And we didn't have that name at that point. We were just orchestra or under Community Music Center of Houston or something like that. So we were just, you know, again, playing a Christmas show, playing an Easter show, those kinds of things. And again, I would just go out and call a church, say, hey, would you like an orchestra to play for this event, for that event? Got some yeses, got some nos, but there were enough yeses to where it could continue thriving. I just thought we should have a name. I'm not sure exactly what I came up with the name, but it just seemed like a good idea to have the name. And as you see, I'm into historic preservation. Like the quartet was named after William Grant Still, the first African-American to have a symphony performed and so forth. So when I found out that Scott Joplin, I didn't know at that point that Scott Joplin was a Texas composer. So when I found out he was a Texas composer, I thought, yeah, let's, you know. And as I read more and more about him and realized that though he's known as the king of ragtime, he composed opera. He composed a ballet. Many times, like musicians are kind of cubbyhole, and they like to put in this box. You're a jazz person. You're a blues person. You're an R&B person. Most of the time, musicians, we like to do a little of this, a little of that. You know, we like to continue growing and exploring.
Absolutely.
So Scott Joplin was one of those persons, like I said. And when I found out about his opera that did survive Treemonisha, I just thought, man, he's what I want to be, you know, what we want to be, black musicians that are not just peg-holed in terms of we only do this kind of music. We can do all kinds of music. So this is in Houston, Texas, an orchestra made up of black women, okay? And this is her, she's the youngest, she was a girl at that point. And this is, it used to be on the old Dowling Street, okay, before it changed to Emancipation Avenue. I just did not know about stuff like that. Again, I keep finding out stuff. I kept finding out stuff to realize that there was so many fascinating things that were going on that we didn't know about. Nobody teaches us these things. Nobody tells us these things. You know, it was things like that that really just make me feel like, heck yeah, I can do the orchestra. 1915 in Houston?
1915.
What the heck? I can do this, you know. Had a closed rehearsal. I mean, people know about that. We had a closed rehearsal. They wanted to see if I knew how to conduct, I could hold the stick right or whatever.
Right.
I guess I passed the test. I think what we're doing is really special.
Yep.
I think what we're doing, a black orchestra in Houston, or in anywhere for that matter, but a black orchestra in Houston, and the fact that we've existed this long. Yes, we've had highs and lows, and there were times that we didn't have any money, but that's okay. That happens.
Yes. Yeah.
But the fact that we're still together, and we're getting better. We really, really are. It's still a community orchestra, but I'm just so proud of that orchestra. I'm so grateful that they still allow me to work with them.
I was like, wow, we are a black orchestra being conducted by a black woman. It was one of those where I was like, oh wow, this is like new and interesting. But it's like after that, I was almost like, wow, there's a black orchestra, guys. Because it's like I always knew, you know, my heritage, knew what we come from and came from and stuff, but I was never reminded of it or even given opportunities to be in spaces where it's like it was just us. She's built a space for us to come be black string players in Houston with the Community Music Center and specifically the Scott Joplin Chamber Orchestra. It's inclusive of players that don't want to jump through crazy hoops just to be in rooms that we've been excluded from. Like we really get to like be like, oh yeah, you know, I play a string instrument, you know, and I'm black. Can I be in the orchestra? And the answer is yes. Like not no, not, oh, you gotta do this audition or whatever. It's like, I didn't have to audition to come and play with an ensemble, with a community ensemble with people that look like me, which is really that's the dream for anybody that's doing something, is to do what they love around people that look like them and share the same story, you know? I've given her flowers, but like I'll continue to do that and continue to encourage people to do that because she's really done, yeah, a lot of stuff.
The Camden County was segregated, and of course they didn't give us any money for anything extra. And of course the people were so poor that they couldn't provide instruments for their kids. So I devised what we call bell piano, and I used bottles, and I tuned them according to pitch with water. So the very highest note had the least amount of water, the lowest note had the most water. And I tuned it to the key of C with an F sharp and a B flat, so that they could play things like Silent Night and America. And they had a wonderful time. We had come to Houston and found 90 kids who needed voice training, and she was the only teacher. And she asked me, would I come down? I said, well, I'll come for the rest of the semester. I got down here in March, April, and May. They said, well, we need somebody to help in the summer. So I said, okay. And then I went back to New York for 2 weeks. Well, we didn't find anybody. Will you come back? So I came back, and they weren't even trying to find anybody. I didn't realize that until I had gotten entrenched in it. And then I got very involved with the students. I felt, oh, terrific. Voice students, just where that talent was coming from, I had no idea. But they just were such gorgeous singers that we, on the very first, after we'd been here about 2 years, we decided after we gotten a pulse of the faculty and the community, we decided we were going to do opera.
So 3 months turns into 29 years
Absolutely.
at Texas
Oh,
Southern
and I had a ball.
University.
Oh, I had a great, great time. I believe that music has been the panacea of many a ill. For instance, we don't have anything, we don't convene anywhere at any time and do anything, and we don't have music. It can be church, it can be a funeral, it can be a baptism, it can be a pep rally, it can be a political rally, it can be, we're gonna have some music. As a man said at a funeral not so long ago, we're gonna have some church up in here, and we're gonna have some music up in here.
Ruth Stewart was a very hard person to satisfy. And she was strict, and you just had to be on point. She looked for excellence. I mean, she had herself been in Europe and performed, you know, so you couldn't just come with anything. She expected.
You had to do your homework.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And she didn't have a lot of smiles for you. You know, you had to get it done. And I appreciate the work that she did.
And it was what Texas Southern and Miss Stewart and Miss Rollins and Dr. Nellens and Dr. McClellan and Mr. Bradley, it was what they put in me that made me the person that I am. I was in her presence, and I knew her and I loved her, but I did not know the impact until now as I look back on it. The places that I've been all over Europe, all over these United States. And the things that they have taught me and the things that they have put in me have carried me. She and Miss Rollins, they were building character. They were building students and people of integrity. They were building educators to carry on this love of music, and not just one avenue of it, but any genre. I just retired after 44 years of teaching choral music in HISD and Galena Park ISD. 44 years of teaching music. And somebody said, why'd you stay so long? I loved it. And I developed the same relationship with my students that she developed, that she and Ms. Rollins developed with us.
I would say when I was very young, probably 6 years old. And my grandmother lived on Keltish Street. This is in Lufkin. She lived on Keltish Street, facing the street. But there was another lady that lived down into, I guess what you would call today, it was like a wooded area.
Okay.
But she had a piano. And I would go down there whenever I visited my grandmother, and I would play on that piano. And the one song that I always played was Does Jesus Care? And I was only 6 years old, but I could play that song and I could sing it. At 12 years old, my daddy made it possible for me to play for a church down in, I don't remember the area. It was just a Highway 90 out of Houston, out of Lufkin, Texas. That's all I can tell you. But anyway,
Down the road.
Yeah, it was about 30 miles from Lufkin. And so I did a lot of teaching at 12. The director of the choir, the music director, because he did band and choir.
And choir, okay.
Yeah, he gave the choir to me.
Wow.
And so I became a director before I graduated from high school.
I was in the choir with Miss Moorhead, and she called Miss Stewart, and she said, I got this student, I need you to hear the voice, because she's over in the alto section, but I think she got more voice than that. Anyway, the way that goes is, so she said, call her mom and see if you can pick her up. She did. She picked me up. She took me to her house. She vocalized me. And she had called Miss Moorhead and laid the phone down. When I finished warming up, she said, do you know who that is? And Miss said, no, who is that? She said, that's your student, Gloria Harrison. And I can tell you what the problem is. She's not an alto, she's a soprano. But because of that, and what she did for me, I decided that I was going to teach in an HBCU, that my career would always be in an HBCU. So when I get to the Virgin Islands, there was no music degree at all. I had never been in a building situation. I had walked, my first job was Knoxville College, another school a lot like HT. So, it was already in place. I just walked in as the voice teacher. But to get to a place where there was no music degree at all, I was like, what am I gonna do? And I kind of got that because of Miss Stewart. But so I taught, the course was called Introduction to Music, but it's like music appreciation. So I did that, and I started looking around saying, this culture loves to sing. I started visiting the churches, and they sing the hymns with gusto, and they sing every verse, and they know all of the verses from memory. They're not reading out the hymn book, okay? Then, of course, I fell in love with calypso, reggae, and all this. So there, another man was there, the band director, and we decided to go throughout the Virgin Islands to see what did music education look like in the public schools. So when we traveled St. Croix, St. John, St. Thomas, going into schools, there were a lot of teachers teaching music, but they didn't have degrees in music. So basically, we started telling the administration, we believe we could have a music degree here. They already had a band, but they were just basically playing calypso, the music of the culture. Not, no concert music, concert band and stuff like that, but no choir. So I went to the president of the university and I said, Dr. Richards, I think we can have a choir here. He smoked a cigar. He was from St. Croix. He reared back in his chair and he blew his smoke in my face, put his foot up on his head. What makes you think we could have a choir here? So I told him, I said, well, the people like to sing. And I said, I believe, that because of that, we could have a choir. So I convinced him to put choir in the schedule for the next semester. And first day of class, it was only 5 people. I was like, oh my God, this man is gonna laugh in my face. But those 5 students, I said, okay, I'm a statesider, I'm not from here. Y'all are from here, and you must know other people that wanna sing like you, want this choir. So you're gonna have to go out and help me, And they did. And so the first concert that I did in St. Thomas, I had 25 students in the choir. It made the front page of the Daily News. But that's when I realized that I could build